to another edition of Julia Herdman History. Today, I'm delving into the lives of Elizabeth and Maria Gunning, two sisters who rose to the highest echelons of 18th century British society simply on their looks. This pair of Irish sisters appeared suddenly and unheralded in London during the reign of George II. They instantly dazzled everyone they met with their beauty and charm. They were like twin stars shining with one light. Without effort or display, they attracted the fashionable world to their feet, then held it captive. They were the it girls of Georgian London who carved out a future for themselves against all the odds. The Gunning girls were born into modest circumstances, but they harnessed their extraordinary beauty and used it as a stepping stone to great wealth and position. Their striking looks, intelligence, charm, and grace opened doors to opportunities that would otherwise have remained closed to a pair of Irish girls from such humble backgrounds. Within a short time, they captivated hearts and minds, forging powerful connections and earning places in the highest echelons of society. Their journey is a testament to the transformative power of self-confidence and the ability to leverage one's best assets to achieve one's dreams. Elizabeth and Maria were the daughters of John Gunning of Castle Coote, County Roscommon, and his wife, Bridget Burke, a daughter of Theobald Burke, 6th Viscount Mayo. Maria was born in 1732, Elizabeth a year later, in 1733. Although their parents were Irish, the girls were born at the manor in Hemmingford Grey in England. In late 1740 or early 1741, when the girls were 8 and 7 respectively, the Gunning family returned to John Gunning's ancestral home in Ireland. It was not a good time. Famine was raging. In the years since the defeat of James II, Ireland's farmers had abandoned growing wheat for grazing. This cut their costs and reduced the supply of wheat for bread, but more importantly for the landed gentry, like the Gunnings, it lowered the rents landlords could charge for their land. In the years that followed, the family divided their time between their country house in Roscommon and a rented townhouse in Dublin, where the family could enjoy and participate in Dublin society. So, Elizabeth and Maria's story was not what we would call a classic rags to riches story. Rather, it was one of the gentile poverty of the Anglo-Irish gentry to the fabulous wealth and position of the blue-blooded English aristocracy, in one easy step. The impoverished Gunnings had 6 children altogether, and they had no money for dowries for any of them. According to some sources, when Maria and her sister Elizabeth came of age, probably around the age of 16 or 17, their mother urged them to take up acting, to earn a living. This was a highly unusual suggestion from a loving mother. Girls who took to the stage to make a living were usually from much lower ranks of the social ladder. So, times must have been very hard for the family for their mother to suggest such a thing. This was because acting was simply not a respectable thing for any woman to do, let alone one from a respectable family. Whether deemed respectable or not, the girls embraced the vibrant Dublin stage effortlessly. In October 1748, Viscountess Petersham hosted a ball at Dublin Castle. The two sisters lacked dresses for the event until Thomas Sheridan, the manager of a local theatre, provided them with costumes from the Green Room, those of Lady Macbeth and Juliet. Adorned in these outfits, they were introduced to the Earl of Harrington, the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland at the time. Harrington must have been impressed, for by 1750, Bridget Gunning convinced him to grant her a pension. She used this pension to transport herself, Maria, and Elizabeth back to their original home in Huntingdon, England. Their presence at local balls and parties drew much attention to their beauty. The sisters became celebrated figures, their fame spreading to London, where they soon followed. On December 2, 1750, they were presented at the court of St. James's. By then, their fame was such that the presentation was noted in the London newspapers. The king asked them what they'd like to see in London. Maria, who lacked her sister's tact, said she'd like to see a coronation without realizing the man she was speaking to would have to die for such a thing to happen. Luckily, George saw the funny side of her innocent blunder, and Maria was not swept off to the Tower, a contemporary wrote. In 1751, Mr. Gunning, having somehow tided over the worst of his misfortunes, took his family to London. Though still miserably poor, their birth and connections gave them entry to the highest society. Despite being penniless and at the time ill-educated and unrefined, fashionable London went mad over Elizabeth and Maria. The beautiful Miss Gunning became the talk of the town, and wherever they appeared, crowds rushed to gaze upon them. Suitors were plentiful, but their mother guarded their interests with jealous care. Remembering their suffering from poverty, the girls were intent on rich marriages. Among their suitors were the Duke of Hamilton and the Earl of Coventry. The Duke was infatuated with Elizabeth, while the Earl was equally attracted to Maria. The wealth and standing of these noblemen satisfied even their ambitious mother, and the girls were instructed to encourage them judiciously. Neither required much prompting, nor did the young nobleman need to be tricked into a match. Elizabeth was being pursued by James Douglas, the 6th Duke of Hamilton. According to Horace Walpole, the Duke, who was 27, was a hot-headed, debauched, and extravagant young man, who was also in poor financial and physical condition, when he first saw Elizabeth Gunning at a masquerade party. It seems James Douglas was smitten from the off because some months later, at a grand assembly at Lord Chesterfield's to show off his magnificent house, the Duke made passionate advances to Elizabeth, and threw away a winning hand at cards worth several £100 to pursue her around the dance floor. Finally, at a party at Bedford House, he became so impatient to have her, that he sent for a parson to marry them. When the good doctor arrived, he refused to perform the ceremony because they had neither a license nor a ring. But, determined not to be thwarted, the pair made for the notorious Mayfair Chapel, where the incumbent required neither. And so, at midnight, on St. Valentine's Day, on the 14th of February, 1752, the pair were wed. Walpole says that they were eventually joined together, as man and wife, with the aid of a curtain ring. Then one supposes, the happy couple retired to the Duke's London house for their nuptials. A month later Maria was married to the Earl of Coventry. However, her marriage did not turn out to be a happy one. When she and the Earl of Coventry went on honeymoon to France, she began using rouge as the other ladies did, including Madame de Pompadour, but her husband hated it, and reportedly, once chased her in public to rub it off her face. More seriously, the Earl had a flagrant affair with none other than the infamous courtesan, Kitty Fisher. Maria, unlike most other aristocratic wives, did not look the other way as her husband played away from home. According to one account, while walking in St. James's Park, Lady Coventry asked Kitty Fisher for the name of the dressmaker who had made her dress. Kitty Fisher answered that she had better ask Lord Coventry, as he had given her the dress as a gift. The snub left hapless Maria tormented and enraged. Soon, Maria's health began to deteriorate. While one theory is tuberculosis, another frequently repeated story is that she died of lead poisoning caused by overuse of cosmetics. This was the same cause of death rumored to strike down her rival Kitty Fisher. There was no autopsy, so we'll never know. She didn't slow down willingly. One chronicler wrote, with all the spirit of a true belle, however, she refused to quit the paths of pleasure, and was seen attending a celebrated murder trial only a few days before she was forced to take to her bed. Maria Coventry died at the age of 27. Unlike Maria, Elizabeth was happily married twice. Horace Walpole once said of her and first husband, "Duke Hamilton is the epitome of Scotch pride. He and the Duchess, at their own home, walk into dinner before their guests, sit together at the head of their table, eat off the same plate, and drink only to those of earl rank or higher." One might wonder how they managed to get anyone, either above or below that rank, to dine with them at all. Hamilton died on the 17th of January 1758 at the young age of 33. But it wasn't long before Elizabeth had another wealthy husband. First, she became engaged to Francis Egerton, the 3rd Duke of Bridgewater. However, the engagement was cancelled for reasons that remain unknown. But, on the 3rd of February the following year, she married John Campbell, Marquess of Lorne, the son and heir of the Duke of Argyll. As a member of the Argyll family, Elizabeth moved up the social order, and from 1761 to 1784, she served as a Lady of the Bedchamber to Queen Charlotte. Her husband inherited his father's title of Duke of Argyll in 1770, and Elizabeth became known as the Duchess of Argyll. On the 20th of May 1776, King George III, a longtime admirer of hers, created her Baroness Hamilton of Hamilton in her own right. Elizabeth had 3 children from her first marriage to the Duke of Hamilton and 5 from her second. Elizabeth died on the 20th of December 1790 at her home, Argyll House in London, and was buried at Kilmun Parish Church in Kilmun, Argyllshire. All in all, the girls did well. They were neither wealthy nor educated, but with clever guidance from their mother, they made great marriages, allowing their siblings to escape their own lives of genteel poverty. Thank you for joining me today. If you have enjoyed this edition of Julia Herdman History, please give me a thumbs up, press the alarm bell, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so you won't miss my next edition.